Well, good day, and it is so nice to join you guys again with Talking Technical. This is a weekly slot where we discuss some requests from viewers of the program. And I mean, we are just so fortunate that the viewers are phoning in. I know we've got still a little bit of a problem with that landline in Johannesburg, but we're so happy that you tweet to us and you email us and say, listen, Frans, if you've got an opportunity, can you maybe discuss this, share, or that? I love that. It is my job, and in actual fact, it's my passion and hobby. And it's just nice to serve you in this way. So let's start off with a few requests. And I must kick off with Naspers, especially Naspers. I mean, this is the chart, and I want to kick off with a weekly chart first of all. And I can remember early in the year, and we'll maybe touch on the top 40 a little bit later if we've got a little bit of time. And I mentioned earlier in the year that I'm keen on shorting the index, and in actual fact stay short for almost the remainder of the year. Now, if you think about it, Naspers is the darling of the market, or let's say it was the definite darling of the market. But there's a few things that is starting to turn around, and it makes some people nervous. And the big thing was Naspers on a weekly chart, and that's why I'm kicking off, because this viewer phoned in and said, listen, Frans, is there an opportunity for you to discuss Naspers for the simple reason that I bought the share for the long term, and I'm holding on to it because I hope that there's a value unlock, but it looks like it does not want to materialize. Can you maybe discuss the share for us in depth? And I decided then let's kick off with Naspers. Remember, Naspers is almost 20% of the weighting of the top 40 index, so it is playing quite a significant part. If Naspers do something, the top 40 probably follows that. But let's take you back just to review and to give you an idea. That was Naspers a few years back. I mean, in 2013, it was 400 Rand, and it rallied all the way to almost, let's say, well above, everybody said 4,000 Rand it's worth. And if you look at this chart, it had a beautiful rally. And in the meantime, certain things happened. And last week, I pointed out this 3,000 Rand level. And I said, I'm a little bit nervous if Naspers breaks below this line. I'm worried about the stock. Now, if you look at this line, first of all, there's the one trend line, and I showed that last week. It broke that at around 3,300 Rand. There's a classic technical goodbye keys, that's negative. And now the share, excuse me, broke below 3,000 Rand. And that is now the issue that I would like to stress here, because if you look at the chart, and this is now important, let's just have a look there. And I want to show you, this is the important line here that I watched all the way. And I said to myself, listen, Frans, if 3,000 Rand turns into a resistance, things can really start to go ugly. And there you are. Can you see that I'm using this line as a support and a resistance, almost as a pendulum? I sometimes call it somewhat a pivot. But look at it. First of all, the share rallied all the way up, found some resistance there, came back, worked a few months, and it tested it, and it came back, and then it broke up, came back and tested this line and gave us a beautiful technical goodbye keys for the positive, and then it rallied all the way from there to around, from you can almost say 2,860 Rand, straight up to almost 4,000 Rand. But since then, and that was now since November last year, that was the top, that was the lower high, there's another lower high. If you look at this high and if you look at that high, you'll probably see that it's a kind of a double top. And now it broke now this 3,000 Rand level. Now this is nasty, because if that is the case, if 3,000 Rand is going to be a resistance and going to remain as a resistance, I know you will not believe it, but let's just maybe see where the stock can go. I mean, the first target will be 2,860. Then it can maybe go down to 2,740 Rand. Then it can go back to 2,500 Rand. And I'm quite convinced that we're going to get to this point. And the reason why I'm saying that, because Naspers is such a favorite in the market. If it really starts to find a little bit of selling pressure, and if you look at this line, where do I get that from? I just want to show you. This is the line that gave a beautiful support resistance, almost like at the top, which I showed there. Look at it. And that's a beautiful, almost you can say a midpoint line, to tell you that every time it played around this and then it made up its mind and rallied up, I think the stock can go back all the way to 2,220 Rand if Naspers starts to find some other sellers and things are starting to turn out negative for them, because at the moment everybody is still holding on to the stock for the you can almost say value unlock. But I don't like the chart, and I'll be only happy if the chart goes above 3,000 Rand again. Unfortunately, it is negative for me, so I'm a little bit worried. But I would like to show you another chart. And let's just have a look at the top 40. The top 40, there you are. If you look at this chart, this is the chart I showed you a few weeks ago. And there's a rising wedge, and remember, this is a monthly chart of the top 40. And of course, as I just explained, that Naspers plays a big role in this, almost 20% in the weighting of this. But what it means is during this week, suddenly the top 40 index broke this support line. And this support line is coming all the way from 2009, and it goes right up. And then this week it broke at about 49,420. I showed that level before, and I am now nervous. I think that, yes, maybe the market is a little bit oversold at the moment, but I think maybe a little bit of a bounce if we're really lucky. And remember, I say if we're really lucky, because I've mentioned it before, that if the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 is going to come under pressure, I doubt if our market will hold on. Although at the moment I see that we're starting to move into oversold territory on the daily chart, so maybe a little bit of a bounce. But what is the overall of the top 40 index is telling us? If this rising wedge starts to gain some momentum to the downside, and the market cannot find, let's say, 49,400 as a support again, we're about now 500 points from there. This market can easily go back to this line. And where do I get it? I just would like to show you. I use the low of that, and I just change that, and I say that is the opening of this gap. I just extend it to the downside, and this market then easily can go back to 43,500. Unfortunately, at that point in time, if we get to that, most analysts will say, well, guys, now we must be nervous because we're entering into bear market territory. We're not yet there. I said early in January, I think that we'll head into bear market territory by September. Well, I was definitely wrong. But what I can say, if you take Naspers out of the equation, I think we're already deep into a bear market. So for those guys that followed the net short idea, I think it worked out well for them from January till about now, because the rest of the market actually did not do a lot. Well, let's have a look at some other shares. Well, first of all, I would like to show you a share here. Mr. Price, that was also a request. Somebody said, listen, Frans, can you maybe discuss it for me? Because I would like to see what Mr. Price is showing. And he says to me that he's keen. He likes the stock. He would love to buy it. And that's why the moment the guys say we would love to buy it, and he said to me, can you maybe have a look at it? So let's just maybe look at a daily perspective first, and then we can go and look at the monthly perspective. All right, now let's just have a look here. First of all, Mr. Price, there you are, is sitting on a beautiful tweezer bottom. Now remember, this is a daily chart, and this is a candlestick chart. Now a candlestick chart usually shows you the emotion of the investors. So if I look at this tweezer bottom, it tells me that when the share gets to about 218 Rand, there is some buyers around, and that they're nibbling on the stock. And that's why you see these lower shadows. And look what if you look at a few days ago, around, let's say, the 25th of September, we also see a kind of a tweezer bottom here. It gave us a rally, and now we're at almost a crucial point. And I just would like to draw a little line in there. And I just want to show, and I want to say, listen, this is the point. If Mr. Price can get below 218.98, and especially below the low of this lower shadow, 218.40, I will be nervous, because then I know that this tweezer bottom will probably be wiped off the table, and then we can head lower. But I mean, he's keen on maybe trading the stock. And remember, there's a difference between trading and investing. Investing, I know, I see some of the analysts say, if you invest in the market or you invest in a share for the medium to long term, you must actually have maybe a 3-year or a 4-year view on the stock, and you mustn't get nervous if you see these small things. So if you look at investing, I'll look at the weekly chart now. Trading is a different thing. Trading is you look at the tiny little move on the chart, you make your decision, and then of course, And I've said it before and I've tweeted it this week. You can only make a success out of trading if you are not greedy and if you are happy with tiny profits. Now, if you're keen on doing that, you can make a living and you can make a few good trades, and maybe you can also control your emotions with that. You can enjoy that. But I mean, some guys actually loses their control and then they go high wire. Like some friend of mine the other day, he decided that the Aussie is going to do that. He went 17 contracts in a certain way, and it was the wrong decision. It really messed him up because 17 contracts is a big position. So, well, let's have a look at it. There's your tweezer bottom. It can maybe bounce off there, and my first sign of strength will be above 224 Rand 52 cents. I will make a use of a stop loss of 218 Rand and 20 cents. And my targets to the top, if the tweezer top starts to find some traction to the top, 228 Rand 10 cents, 230 Rand 60, and maybe all the way to 234 Rand and 10 cents. And now I want to show the viewers something interesting. If you start looking at maybe buying for the long term, first of all, let's say you bought it on a trading perspective and you said, okay, I just want a few Rand out of it, but then you realize that suddenly this resistance line is starting to turn into a support. You can say to yourself, listen, maybe I must just hang on a little bit and just see if this line at around 231 Rand can turn into a support and remain a support. Because if that is the case, then you can maybe first see the first early signal that the share wants to go higher. So let's have a look at the weekly chart. And let's put in Mr. Price here. And let's see how it works out. Now, if you look at the weekly chart, and I want to take the long-term view of this, let's just go all the way back. What do we see? I mean, Mr. Price on a weekly chart still looks okay, but the moment I zoom it to a little bit more, you can almost say data, I'm immediately nervous. Why am I nervous? I am nervous because from 2011, the stock rallied all the way up to 70 Rand, went up to 290, came back all the way to about 142, went up again at about 290, and what happened then? It lost momentum. And what do we see on this chart? This is quite important. And remember, this trader or this viewer asked me, Frans, can you give me a short-term perspective and a longer-term perspective? And the moment I see a double top, there you are. There's a clear double top on this chart. I immediately say to myself, yes, you can maybe see these tiny bounces to the top, but there's hard work for this share to improve and tell me that you can buy it for the long term. This double top makes me nervous. So first of all, let's just put in a 40-week moving average because I just want to see what is going to take place. If I put in a 40-week moving average, remember this is the long-term moving average that most fundamental analysts also use. And there you are. You can see it already turned into a resistance. There you are. It broke into a resistance. It turned around and suddenly the price action is below the 40-week moving average. That in essence makes me nervous. That is also telling me that maybe the momentum of the stock wants to turn around. This stock showed us before. If it starts to move below the 40-week moving average, the trend keeps it to the downside and it can maybe go all the way even lower. And what happened? From it broke there, at that time 246 Rand, it went as low, can you believe it, 150 Rand. And remember, we all know that Mr. Price is a wonderful company and they do good business. But what it tells you is when this line turns into a resistance, now that is now at 240 Rand, it broke. And look where we are now, 223.4. If you look for a medium to a long-term buy, first of all, what I always do is I take as much data as I got. Here I've got 10 years of data, and suddenly I realize that there's a warning formation telling me to be nervous. First of all, this warning formation gave me the first warning signal. There you are. I just want to draw it in there. At when the share started to drop below 265. That was the first warning formation. In actual fact, this double top can be really nasty and take the share all the way back to this low of 131, and only then this double top will be confirmed. Scary, scary, scary. So at the moment we're still working under this resistance, working under the resistance of the 40-week moving average, and that makes me a little bit negative, or not negative, makes me a little bit worried to say I can buy it for the medium to the long term. It worries me because Mr. Price just shows you that it is almost running out of steam. All right, small bounces to the top, but it can easily change. Then somebody else asked me, Frans, what about Capitec? Now remember, Capitec is one of those companies, and at the moment, we all know that it is definitely a favorite of the market. And remember, they've got a wonderful business. They are a bank in South Africa. In actual fact, I think they taking a lot of clients from the other traditional banks. But look at this stock. I mean, can you believe that? I mean, look at this rally. In actual fact, I've got a friend of mine. He's a reader. He said to me, Frans, I had Capitec shares at R2 a share. He said, and then I heard that they're doing some loans and they borrowing some money to people. And he said, listen, maybe it's a little bit risky. So he sold his shares, I think, at R10. Well, I mean, it also happened to me many a time that you think that you made a good profit and you lock it in and then you see that the share really shoots the light out. Now, what happened here? I mean, from 2009, let's say 35 Rand, it went up to 1,000 Rand. Can you believe it? I mean, it is a fantastic rally. I mean, you cannot even think about it, the kind of profit that you would have made if you kept it from, let's say, 2 Rand to 1,000 Rand. But what do we see here? First of all, the trend from about 2016 was beautifully to the up. I mean, look at all these higher lows. There's a low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. That just tells you that the trend was purely to the beautiful, to the upside. And everybody was quite happy. Then suddenly you had this blow off face to the top, a beautiful lamp pole formation. The stock made a high of around 1,100 Rand, and then it got sold off aggressively, and then it found a support again. And the main thing for me is this 40-week moving average. I mean, the share dropped below that. It worked for almost 3-4 months to find its feet, and then it turned this 916 Rand into a support again, and it bounced up there. And look at it, there's again a low, a higher low, a higher low. That tells you of a share that is gaining momentum and that people are loving it. So for the medium to the long term, the chart still looks quite fine to me. The only thing that I'm worried about is when I start to look at the daily chart. Now let's have a look. Remember, for the medium to long term, no problem. I will get my first warning signal. It's when this higher low becomes a lower low. That will be below 960 Rand. So there's about 40 Rand before you really can get nervous on the stock. But let's have a look at the daily chart, because this is actually the one that I picked up when I tweeted yesterday and I said, listen, I'm doing a little bit of homework on the shares that you guys requesting. I started looking at the share and then I looked at the following. Let's just have a look here. Well, remember, Capitec, the long-term momentum is still beautiful to the upside. Nothing is wrong. It just goes higher. What do I see here? On the short term, I see a tweezer top. Now, a tweezer top tells me every time that the share gets to this 1,030, 1,040 Rand level, there is a seller around, because these higher shadows are telling me that people are keen on selling around that level. Now, what do we see? I mean, there's another high at around 1,031. That can be the start of a tiny double top. So there you've got a tweezer top. There you've got a double top, because there's a little bit of a time period again between the two. And the big thing now is, yesterday it dropped below 1,004 Rand all the way down to about 995. It went up and they closed it above 1,000. And so for me, the crucial thing is these shadows that is pointing out to the bottom is telling me that there's maybe some buyers again in the stock. But I'm worried about this tweezer top. I'm worried about that double top, and that makes me nervous. So I would like to do the following. I would like to say to the viewer, as long as the stock, and there's my line, I just want to draw it in. As long as the stock, there you are, there's the lower shadow. As long as the stock consolidates below 1,005 Rand and 60 cents, I'll be nervous on Capitec. Reason being, this tweezer top will probably be confirmed if it goes lower than that. Yesterday it did close below that. And let's maybe look at some of the targets to the downside. If you look at it, it can easily take the share back to that low of yesterday, 995. It then can take the share down to 981.85. Next level 977, 968 Rand. And I think maybe if things really start to turn out to be nasty, 926 Rand for Capitec, because the momentum is still up. But as I said to Mr. Price earlier on, if you buy it for the short term and suddenly you see a medium to a long term trend line turns into a support, you can be happy. The same thing with Capitec here. If you maybe sell it or you sell it short below, let's say this level of 1,005 Rand, and this, it goes all the way and it starts to break this line, you must say to yourself that there's maybe something bigger in the happening and that you need to take note of that. Remember, remember that if we looked at Naspers' chart, it was first signs that started to show, and we maybe said, oh no, it's not the end of the world, and then suddenly the stock goes below the 40-week moving average. Now in this case, if you look at this stock, and let's just do the 200-day moving average here, because this is a daily chart. I just want to get back there, and I would like to show you. Remember, this is my golden rule. Now if you look at it, it's still above the 200-day moving average, so it's quite happy. I showed it on the weekly chart again, but I think let's just be nervous below 1,005 Rand, and if you want to short it below 1,005 Rand, but make use of a stop loss, a little bit of a big stop loss to me, 1,047 Rand and 30 cents. I'll rather give a tighter one because that's a big stop loss. A tighter one will be 1,030 Rand. If it gets below that, you can, while it's below that, you can be happy with your short. Let's finish off with IPL. Somebody asked me about IPL and said, listen, I'm holding on to this stock for so long now, and I'm almost in a point where I say, can the stock recover? And the reason why somebody asked me that is that, remember, this stock is just telling you that the momentum is still clearly to the downside. And if I look at this chart, it just shows all the way that the momentum is clearly to the downside. I would say rather wait. Let's just draw in this line here. There's a little bit of a falling wedge developing here, but it's early days. In actual fact, I will say let's leave it until it consolidates a little bit more. There you are. There's the line. Look at it. Beautiful falling wedge. But for me, the first sign of strength will be when it gets above this level, 175.76. Unfortunately, negative for me. But let's just have a look at the weekly chart. Maybe something else is developing there that I can maybe just point out to the viewer, and that is Imperial on a weekly chart. Let's just have a look. There's the 40-week moving average, and if I look at this chart, immediately I'm getting nervous. And the reason why I'm getting nervous is, I hope that you can see this, there is well, you can almost say an ugly head and shoulder formation. Now a head and shoulder formation is negative. There you are. There's the left shoulder. There's the head, there's the right shoulder. So the share is working on this. It can take the share all the way down. I will not, can you believe it? 120 Rand if it plays out. It's ugly, but you probably see some bounces in between. But while the stock, and this is the important thing, this is the neckline, while the stock is below 195 Rand, I am nervous on the stock, and it can maybe go even lower below that. Well, that was the end of Talking Technical for today. Thank you so much for all the requests. And I hope that we may be live next week. I hope the guys can sort out that landline. On my side, I'm eager and keen to serve you. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.